In 2010, Shoreline voters passed a measure that reset the city's property tax rate to $1.48 and allowed the city to grow its levy by the change in the Consumer Price Index for 5 years. That measure is expiring at the end of 2016. On July 25, 2016, following public engagement and 3 focused council discussions, City Council adopted a resolution that places renewal of the city's current levy lid lift on the ballot. In this presentation, we're going to discuss the services that are supported by the city's property taxes, the structural challenges faced by the city and most cities in funding those services, and the city's financial sustainability strategies. First, we'll briefly review the many operating services provided by the City of Shoreline, including aquatics and recreation programs, parks maintenance, community partners, events, shoreline police, permitting, inspection, planning, and code enforcement, 24-hour customer response team, emergency management, human services, economic development, and a myriad of other services. In our 2016 Citizen Survey, 93% of Shoreline residents rated Shoreline as a good or excellent place to live. However, the City of Shoreline, like most cities, faces a structural challenge in the funding of our basic services, where the cost of providing the service is growing faster than the revenues to support those services. The reason for this problem is complex, but with property tax representing 30% of the city's operating revenues, it is in large part the result of the 1% limit on the growth of property tax levies approved by Washington voters in 2001. When the cost of providing city services generally increases even more than CPI, a common measure of inflation. This slide shows the impact of that structural challenge, with the black line representing our forecasted revenues over the next 10 years, and the red line our forecasted costs. This is our current update of the forecast created in July, and you can see that the forecasted growth in costs is projected to exceed revenues throughout the forecast period. The city is required by law to balance our budget. Without a levy lid lift or other new revenue, our forecast anticipates that we will be forced to reduce costs, which results in a reduction in services every year beginning in 2017. The reason for this is simply inflation. And, as mentioned before, cities' costs have historically grown faster than the Consumer Price Index, which is the most common measure of inflation. And yet, the Consumer Price Index does not include many of the types of goods and services that the city purchases in its calculation. This slide illustrates the difference between the 1% property tax levy cap, the Consumer Price Index, and the city's projected cost changes over the next 10 years, assuming current service levels. When reviewing property tax bills, it's helpful to understand where property tax money goes. You can see that the city's share of every dollar is 13 cents. 11 cents is our regular levy that supports operating costs, and 2 cents for the park bond levy passed by Shoreline voters in 2006. The balance is divided between the county, schools, and other taxing entities. The city has long held financial sustainability as a high priority. The city has implemented best practices of financial sustainability, maintaining fully funded operating reserves and a rainy day reserve for use in an unanticipated economic downturn. The city evaluates the impacts of current decisions on the future through the use of a 10-year financial sustainability model, and follows best practices by funding ongoing costs using ongoing revenues and one-time investments using one-time revenues. Recognizing the need for a long-term strategy to address financial sustainability, in 2014, City Council formed a subcommittee and engaged the community to build on the work of earlier citizens committees and developed a 10-year financial sustainability plan, which was approved in 2014. The plan has 7 strategies, 4 of which have been implemented and are currently in use. The most financially impactful strategy is a potential renewal of the levy lid lift. The city is required by law to balance our budget, and without the levy lid lift or other new revenue, our forecast anticipates that we will be forced to reduce costs, which result in a reduction in services each year beginning in 2017. The impact of the reductions is cumulative. Our forecast reflects the need for additional ongoing reductions being required each year, continuing throughout the forecast, and you can see that in the slide to the right. Council has placed a measure on the ballot to renew the levy lid lift. Prior to making this decision, beginning in February, the city manager convened a 13-member committee comprised of members from many different neighborhoods representing business, human services, education, and the arts to provide input on this topic. The Financial Sustainability Citizens Advisory Committee met 7 times from February through May. The committee learned about the services that the city provides, engaged in a budget exercise to identify priorities for services, and discussed the strategies of the 10-year financial sustainability plan with a focus on the levy lid lift. In their report to the city manager, the FSCAC unanimously supported some form of a levy lid lift to maintain current services and service levels, with the majority supporting a renewal and increased funding for human or social services. The forecast presented in this chart assumes a 10% valuation increase in the city's property tax valuations in 2017 based upon projections provided by King County in July. More recent estimates anticipate the increase will only be in the 7 to 8% range, which would impact this forecast even with the levy lid lift. The renewal involves setting the rate to $1.39 and allowing growth by CPI through 2022, similar to the measure passed in 2010 that reset the rate to $1.48. Because the current property tax rates in Shoreline have decreased since the rate was last set as a result of rising assessed valuations and the limit on property tax levy growth, the current rate is now $1.33 per 1,000 assessed value. This means that renewal does represent a 6-cent increase in the property tax rate and the amount of property tax that a homeowner will pay. On average, a homeowner of a home with an assessed valuation of $353,000 in 2016, Shoreline's median assessed value, would pay an additional $84 per year on average over the six-year levy period, or an average of $7 per month. To put that into perspective, the total city portion paid per year on average without the levy lid lift would be $488. With the levy lid lift, it would be $572. If the levy renewal doesn't pass, the city will need to begin making decisions for reductions to basic services starting in 2017. Over time, unless other revenue sources are found, the reductions to basic city services will grow and have impacts to those services. The city will prioritize services that will be reduced, which are likely to include basic services and programs that the city is not required to provide, such as neighborhood services, the pool, school resource officers, and communications. If voters approve the renewal at this level, it will allow the city to maintain current services at current levels based on current assumptions. If you have questions about the levy lid lift, you can find more information on the city's website, or you can contact Sarah Lane or Rick Kirkwood with the city's Administrative Services Department. Thank you.